It's Thanksgiving week here on the Rush Limbaugh program and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. And as always, we come to you from the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882. So the President of the United States, Mr. Hope and Change, appeared somewhere in the White House, looked like the briefing room last night, shortly after 10 o'clock, after the DA in St. Louis had finished his announcement and explanation, taken a few questions. Obama came out and, he called for calm. But he then went on and spoke for 20 minutes about all the things he thinks are wrong in America, all the things he thinks are bad in America in terms of race relations and police department for 20 minutes, maybe longer, in what was supposed to be an appeal for calm. So he started out appealing for calm and then kind of fed the rage. At least that was our take watching it. The president said there are Americans who are deeply upset, even angry. It's an understandable reaction. See, here's the thing. If you look at this case with what is now known, there are facts. If you look at this case with the facts measured against the law, what happened could have had and should have happened 2 months ago. This only played out as long as it did because of the fears that the emotional would explode in Ferguson. But the facts of the case and the law do not matter to those who are deeply upset and even angry, because it isn't about that. And I think it's sad. And I think it's a continuing sign of deterioration in certain elements of the country where what is the facts and the law don't even matter, don't even make an impression. Now, I know it's not new. I know here in 2014 there's nothing new. Everything that's happening today has happened many times before. But at some point you want to stop it. At some point you want to make progress. At some point you want to have it stop happening. You want to move forward. Everybody wants to be the agent of that kind of positive change. I know I would like to be. And it's very frustrating that the facts of what happened don't matter. It's very frustrating that the facts of what happened measured against the law don't matter. A hill of beans. Now, as I watched the president last night, it sounded to me like he was disappointed with the grand jury decision. He made his call for calm and then fed the rage. He sounded like he was disappointed by the grand jury decision. He said it's tragic when a young man loses his life, but it was avoidable. What happened in Ferguson needn't have happened, but it did. And that's where the great divide begins. No fact about what happened in this incident that is in any way negative toward the gentle giant will even be processed, much less believed. It'll be immediately rejected and cast aside as bogus BS, and it will not even penetrate. The grand jury system, I was kind of surprised. I know the legal beagles that I had listened to, a lot of legal people for whom I have great respect, said, Rush, this slam dunk. We've seen the evidence as much as we've seen, and as much as we've heard about testimony, there's no way this cop gets indicted. And I said, yeah, but that's not the way things happen in the country anymore. Episodes like this need sacrificial lambs. And everybody's going to be focused on keeping the peace. And everybody's going to be focused on, just make the problem go away. So I was surprised. The grand jury system worked, despite enormous pressures exerted by the president's representative, Eric Holder, the attorney general. A police officer was not indicted, and the president let it be known last night that if some people don't think justice was done, he understands. If some people are deeply upset and they don't think justice happened last night or the last 2 months, then he understands them being upset. I think he missed a golden opportunity. I can't tell you how many golden opportunities this man has missed. He missed an opportunity if he really cared about unity, he could have done a lot for it last night. If he really cares about bringing people together, if he really cares about a functioning, orderly society, even if he wants to transform it, he had a golden opportunity last night, and he punted. He had 20 minutes of inane ramblings that were designed subtly to feed the rage. And he could have done so much. You do have to admit that he is, when he applies himself, a very persuasive and talented speaker and orator when he applies himself. If it's on the teleprompter, the words he wants to use are there, then he can do it really well. Didn't even try. It was just the exact opposite. It was so disappointing to me. But then I had to stop and realize that's not what Obama's about. Obama transforming America, he knows it's going to be messy. And he knows it's going to be filled with strife. And he knows there's going to be a certain amount of chaos. That's unavoidable. Given the scope of the change he desires, he knows people aren't just going to sit idly by and let it happen. They're going to fight it, those who don't agree with it. And that is what community organizers do. They agitate. And that's what Obama sadly did last night, was agitating. He had a chance. He had a golden opportunity to do exact opposite. And he didn't even try. You see, to me, what happened in Ferguson last night, if you say, as the president did, it's an understandable reaction, that there are Americans deeply upset, even angry, it's an understandable reaction. How is it understandable? What if the rage and what if the anger is not legitimate? What if it's the product of this is my whole point. The Democrat Party, the American left, has created in its base supporters a degree of anger and rage that borders on the irrational. And they do it about everything. They do it about the Iraq War. They do it about the war on terror. They do it about virtually everything. And they keep their base supporters in a fevered pitch where their base supporters think virtually everybody is out to get them, that the deck is so unfairly stacked that they don't even have a chance, even with a man who is historic as president, the first African-American. That doesn't even matter. You create this hopelessness. You create a circumstance where the foregone conclusion is disaster. But why should the reaction last night be understandable when it isn't really? We have to define understandable and the way Obama meant it. He meant it in a way of justifying it. And that's where he missed a golden opportunity. But this is unnecessary, and it's not going to change anything. It's not going to improve circumstances for anybody. It's going to make them worse for practically everybody involved. Other than the people that benefit from this. Who benefits from this chaos? Who benefits from this strife? Who benefits from the continuing racial strife in America? Who benefits from this? If you answer that question, you'll find out who's responsible for it. And don't doubt somebody benefits from it, or it wouldn't happen. Got to take a break. Be right back. Don't go away. Let's listen to a little bit of President Obama last night. Grab audio soundbite number 14. This is where now remember now, he starts out by asking for calm. And then he could have quit. He could have done a short appeal for calm. He could have done so much. He could have appealed to unity. He could have appealed to the best. He didn't even try. After asking for calm, he then fed the rage. And I know some of you are saying, that's a little bit extreme, don't you think, Mr. Limbaugh? Feeding the rage? What exactly are you talking about? Well, if you know how to listen to these things, and if you know how to hear these things as Obama's audience heard him, you listen to Obama with your feelings intact, and you hear him ask for calm, and that's it. Okay, cool. All right, President, and you relax, and you watch the rest of it, and you hear this smooth-talking guy, sounding intelligent, not really paying much attention, and if you do, you think best he sound like he's rambling. But he wasn't rambling. And so for you doubting Thomases out there, let me give you an illustration of that which I am expertly talking about.
The fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color. Some of this is the result of the legacy of racial discrimination in this country. And this is tragic because nobody needs good policing more than poor communities with higher crime rates. The good news is we know there are things we can do to help. That means working with law enforcement officials to make sure their ranks are representative of the communities they serve. We know that makes a difference.
Now, does this sound like he's appealing to calm? This man's reciting what he considers to be ongoing problems in this country. Many parts that still exist, and even after 6 years of him being in charge, it's still happening. It still exists. Fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color. Right, so this is all understandable, what's happening in Ferguson after you call for calm. And some of this is the result of the legacy of racial discrimination in this country. What do you mean the legacy? You mean when it used to be real bad back then, or do you mean as it is today? Because that's how it was heard. The legacy justifies the present, you see, if you know how to hear this stuff. He knows who his audience is, and he knows how they're going to hear it. You think he's appealing for calm and making these intellectual observations about the status of law enforcement in our community. And then he went on to parrot what Rudy Giuliani said yesterday. Rudy Giuliani on Meet the Depressed on Sunday said to Michael Eric Dyson, we wouldn't be the white cops. Michael Eric Dyson wouldn't be in the neighborhoods if you weren't killing each other. Giuliani said that to Michael Eric Dyson, who then blew his gasket. Obama said the same thing. And this is tragic, Obama says, because nobody needs good policing more than poor communities with higher crime rates. Well, the reason there are a lot of cops in there is because there's a lot of crime in there. And then, signifying that all that was bad news, the president then said, now the good news is we know there are things we can do to help. Well, we're 6 years in, pal. What have we been doing to help? Ferguson, the split screen. Here's this guy calling for calm and asking and talking, and Ferguson's burning on the other half of the screen. It was ironic. It was uncanny. I mean, if you weren't in full control of your faculties, you'd find it funny. Here's Obama, somber and cool, calm, collected, just like he did in the faculty lounge when he's talking to Jonathan Gruber about health care, thinking how stupid the American people are, and appealing for calm and explaining and justifying. And on the other half of the screen, Ferguson's in flames under a season's greetings sign. Did you see that, Snurdly? How did it happen that the original round of protests occurred under the season's greetings, the same kind of sign that you see in It's a Wonderful Life, the Jimmy Stewart movie? Season's greetings? Monday Night Riots. No. There are some who might like that as a regular show, Monday Night Riots. But I don't know. And then there are things that we can do. to help. That means working with law enforcement officials to make sure their ranks are representative of the communities they serve. We know that makes a difference. Meaning, we got too many white cops in Ferguson, is what that means. That means there are too many white cops in Ferguson. That means if we're going to have more policing, we got to have more black cops in there because they understand and might behave differently than white cops. You never know. So Obama was admitting that the races really can't work together because they don't understand each other. And one of the reasons why there's all this problem in the poor communities is the cops are not representative of the people who are committing the crime. And if we would change that, then we know that makes a difference. And then in typical Washington bureaucrat liberalism solutions, he said that he has instructed Eric Holder to immediately have meetings and make phone calls with law enforcement officials all over the country to fix this. That means problem solved. In liberalism, you just say, we're going to have a meeting and the problem solved. Be it jobs, deficit, call a meeting. Or you instruct an underling to call somebody else and have a meeting. Problem solved. All this designed to comfort people and to let them know that the POTUS is on the case. And meanwhile, on the other half of that screen, Ferguson, Missouri was in flames. And we're back. Rush Limbaugh here to Cutting Edge. Societal Evolution. Here's grab audio soundbite 13. This is Obama just prior to the soundbite we played moments ago.
I also appeal to the law enforcement officials in Ferguson and the region to show care and restraint in managing peaceful protests that may occur. As they do their jobs in the coming days, they need to work with the community, not against the community.
Oh, it's their fault.
To distinguish the handful of people who may use the grand jury's decision as an excuse for violence. Distinguish them from the vast majority who just want their voices heard around legitimate issues in terms of how communities and law enforcement interact.
So he's basically asking the cops, just stand aside. You know, you're going to make matters worse if you show up here. And these are peaceful protests. You know, just let them happen. And